You don't know. They took everything I was. He used me to kill.
This is it. This isn't just my favorite episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, but this scene alone is what helped me fall in love with the show and filmmaking as a teenager. The true display of the emotional impact the Borg had on Picard is just one of those scenes that sticks with you after you're done watching it. So let's break this scene down blow by blow and uncover why it's a television masterpiece in my opinion. This is Ketwalski. So let's set this scene up. This episode, entitled Family, is for all intents and purposes the third part of the best of both worlds. The action and threat aspects of the story are now over, and it's time to examine how this event has affected people in different ways. Most notably, how Picard feels having been assimilated and used to kill thousands of Starfleet personnel. While the Enterprise is undergoing repairs, Picard visits his old family vineyard in France. There, we are introduced to his brother Robair and his family. The tension and disconnect between the brothers is played up throughout the entire episode, Picard being the overachiever who went off and joined Starfleet, and Robair, the rough-and-tumble traditionalist who believes in keeping up with the older ways of doing things. Both men are headstrong and stalwart in their beliefs. Throughout the entire episode, Robair is essentially baiting Picard into a fight because he, very smartly, recognizes his brother as having given up in some regards. He does this during their first standoffish reunion, then again during the dinner scene, and finally with his questioning of what happened to Picard during the Borg event. This entire plan was actually set up very early on in the episode during their first meeting inside the vineyard.
Now make yourself at home. You know where everything is. You generally eat about 8. I must try and cure this poor, sick vine.
Robair is not just talking about taking care of the vine. He is talking about a plan in his mind to mend his brother Picard. This plan eventually culminates with the two of them fighting with each other briefly in the vineyard, and that's where this scene takes place. Here, both brothers are covered in mud, laying on the ground next to one another. The mud here represents several things. First, it's a visual representation that everyone has done things they're not proud of. We all have a bit of mud on us. That's a fact of life. Picard is finally able to open up about his mud, or in this case the guilt of being used as an instrument of death and not being strong enough to stop the Borg himself. Second, mud, or clay, is often used as a literary device to represent creation or birth, such as an older origin story for Wonder Woman. I believe this use of mud is visually telling the audience that Picard is also being reborn as a new man, someone who has to learn to live with the pain of what happened and move on with his life. Initially, Robair tells Picard that he needed to fight with him. This was done for 2 reasons in my mind. One is that he needed to reignite the spirit within himself, and 2, it was a good way to release the emotional pressure that had been building up within him. The physical confrontation is what leads Picard to begin to open up about what's really eating away at him.
You don't know, Robert. You don't know. They took everything I was. He used me to kill and to destroy, and I couldn't stop them. I should have been able to stop them. I tried. I tried so hard. But I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't good enough. I should have been able to stop them. I should.
So, my brother is a human being after all.
What a fantastic bit of acting on both men's parts here. Robair letting his brother speak while Picard is finally letting his guard down. The music, as well, starts off with an eerie tension to it, followed up by a softer tone that perfectly captures the emotional weight of what's happening on screen. Robair's response might take some people by surprise here, Instead of reassuring him that everything will be okay or trying to psychoanalyze him, Robair matter-of-factly states that his brother is indeed a human being after all. This statement has multiple meanings. During his speech, Picard says that the Borg took everything from him, everything that he was. Robair's statement is assuring his brother that no matter what they did to him, he's still a human just like all of us. The second meaning is to remind Picard that it wasn't his fault. He is just one human being after all, and there was really nothing anyone, even the overachieving Picard, could have done to stop it.
This is going to be with you a long time, Jean-Luc. A long time. You have to learn to live with it. You have a simple choice now. Live with it below the sea with Louis, or above the clouds with the Enterprise.
Then, Robair again says exactly what his brother needs to hear. You have the mud on you, Picard, and you can either live with it below the sea or in the sky with the Enterprise. But there's no running from it. You cannot hide from the pain no matter what you did. It seems like such an obvious thing to say, but as many people who have experienced such overwhelming emotional trauma can tell you, that kind of simplicity is often hard to uncover alone. We get caught up sometimes dealing with the issue ourselves, and we don't see the easy solution staring at us in the face. Obviously, this is a condensed version of grief, but you think you get the idea. Picard and Robair, both covered in their own version of mud, work together to lift themselves off the ground and lean on each other to head home. This was such a simple thing for the director to have them do, but it speaks volumes. It's visually telling the audience that sometimes we need help to lift ourselves out of the mud, or in this case, the pain. Robair's line about still not liking Picard is also very fitting to this scene. He doesn't like his brother very much, but he loves him dearly. This entire final portion is framed to show that you don't have to get along with someone to love and care about them. Now, this scene is perfect in my mind. However, the icing on the cake for the overall point of this episode was when Picard decides to leave and head back to the Enterprise. He's not only wearing his uniform again, something he hasn't done the entire episode, but this moment with Robair shows the real emotional connection that these two have. It's not exactly friendship, but it is family. TNG often gets some flack about how it resets itself from episode to episode, not really showing the impact each adventure has on the crew. But this episode, in particular, showcased something rarely seen up to this point: the long-lasting effects of a specific event on the Enterprise. I would be remiss also not to mention that Patrick Stewart's father suffered from PTSD during his time in the war.
But to my astonishment, towards the end of the report, it says, and Sergeant Stewart is suffering from shell shock. Oh. And this has a profound effect on how somebody develops, particularly when they come back into civilian life.
Certainly didn't know he'd been shell-shocked. That's fascinating.
His relationship with him was troubled to say the least. I cannot help but feel as though part of the reason his performance in this scene is so convincing is due to his real-life connection to what this kind of pain can do to a person. Overall, this episode is my favorite in the show, and possibly the franchise. The acting, sets, music, dialogue are all connected together for a powerful message about healing, support, and dealing with pain. A true masterpiece.